Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Multiverse. I am HB here with my co-host LB, and today we are talking about Big Hero 6, which I had never seen before, and I watched for the first time.
Wild. I can't believe it. I am shook, as the children would say.
I feel like this always happens. I'm like, I haven't seen that. And you're like, what? And that's why I didn't tell you, because I knew you would hit me and from like across the world. And because I know this is like one of your favorite movies. And I was like, I'm not going to tell her that I've never seen this. And it's just going to be a surprise. But then I was watching it and I was like having visceral reactions. But for those who have not seen it, like me, major spoilers ahead. I'm really glad that I went into this not knowing anything. I had, in the 10 years that this movie has been out, nothing has been spoiled for me. I didn't know the plot of the movie. I'm just going to say this. I did not know what to expect. Like, I had no idea. The way that I remember it being marketed, I just remember Baymax. And honestly, I didn't even know his name was Baymax until watching this, because I thought he was Big Hero 6. Like, that's why I thought that the movie was called that. And I just remember, like, the big floofy robot thing. And I knew nothing else about it. So if you have not seen this movie, like I hadn't, don't listen to this episode. Please go watch it before you listen to this, because there are major spoilers ahead. We are going to talk about my new Disney crush. Yeah. So anyway, that's my disclaimer before starting this, is that if you have not seen it, or haven't seen it in a long time and like forget everything, just go back and watch it. It was a blast. I really loved it. So yeah.
I'm so excited about this. Yeah, I did not know you had never seen it. And yes, if you had told me, like, if I had seen you, or I mean over text, it was just big caps, a lot of exclamation points, I think, of like, whoa, my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't
I
believe
think
it.
you said what? You said what in all caps, and then you said Heather, and then I think you would have used my full name.
If I had known it, if I had known your middle name.
Yeah. I could tell that's the vibe you were trying to yell at me.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was like, this cannot be happening. What on earth? And I'm actually really upset. I have a Baymax shirt. I'm not even wearing it. I have a little Baymax plush. Anyway, I know, sadness. Moving on. But this movie is great, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it, with it being your first time seeing it. And obviously, as you know, as I do, I've seen a lot of the movies we talk about many times. So my perspective of it is a little bit skewed, I guess I would say. So I like knowing what people see for the first time compared to what I did or do and have. So I'm very excited. Yay.
Yeah.
And let me guess, your crush is Tadashi?
Oh my God. Yes. I was like, he's the best big brother and he is so fine. Hello? How did I not know this person existed in the Disney universe? Like, what? And he created Baymax, who is like a literal caregiver. Like, his heart, he's just the softest boy and the sweetest. And I'm just like, what? So yeah, head over heels in love with Tadashi. And then was absolutely devastated, which we will talk about. We will get into that. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll hop into the synopsis of the movie. Again, like Heather said, if you haven't seen it yet, please just stop here, come back later, go watch the movie, come back, and yeah. Anyway, so the synopsis for the movie: Big Hero 6 is about Hero, who is considered a young robotics genius, and his inflatable healthcare robot Baymax, who, as Heather said, was built by his older brother Tadashi, who major spoilers and sadness, dies in a fire. Super, super sad. But it's that fire that kind of uncovers, reveals that there is a villain in San Francisco who's using something that he stole in the fire for nefarious purposes. A lot of, or some of the themes in this movie include grief, friendship, technology for good, and the importance of physical and emotional healing and health, which is like Baymax's main, I guess you could say, initiative. And then Hero throughout the movie is learning to cope with loss and finds purpose alongside his friends. And through teamwork and creativity, they become a superhero team called Big Hero 6. And the film delivers a heartwarming message about resilience and human connection amidst action-packed sequences and humor. And yes, I got that from Google. Sue me. Don't sue me, please. I have nothing. I don't have anything to give you.
I think it's public domain. It's a synopsis. I think that's okay.
Okay, cool. Whew, thanks.
It's
So,
okay.
as you said, Heather, the movie came out in 2014, November 7th, specifically of 2014. So, it's almost about 10 years ago. We usually talk about our personal experiences and first time watching it. And as this is your first time as of yesterday, Friday,
Last
please,
night. Literally
last
last night.
last night,
Yeah.
tell me more.
Okay, so I went on a ride with this movie because first of all, you've got it starts with a robot fight, right? So
Wait, can I
we're
just
inside
say
this
something real
this
quick?
underground.
The way that it opens up and it pans over the city. So it's called San Francisco, which is like a combination of Tokyo and San Francisco. And I'm from, for people who don't know, I live in the Bay Area, grew up around San Francisco, went to college, lived there for a couple of years. Anyway, as it pans over the ferry building, you can see the building I used to work in, which is always like a fun little thing to point out. And then the university that Tadashi and Hiro end up going to is based on one of my best friend's university. And so I've been to that campus. It doesn't look nearly as gorgeous as the movie, but yeah, little fun fact. Sorry. You talking about the opening. I interrupted. I'm so sorry. Continue.
No, it's cool. I'm glad you said that because yeah, I meant to say when you mentioned San Francisco earlier, like it took me a long time to like put two and two together that it was those two things, which is cool. And but anyway, like it starts with this underground robot fight and the introduction to Hero is awesome. Like I loved the introduction to him. Like he plays dumb and he's like, "Oh no, I'm just a little boy and my robot is gonna get defeated." And then he lets the guy win and then he's like, "It's okay, I want to try again, I have more money." And then he like uses his robot like totally kicks the other robot's ass and dude gets mad and chases him, and then Hiro's brother Tadashi, the love of my life, comes and saves him on his motorcycle, and they go on a wild chase. And essentially the reason I fell in love with Tadashi, here's why. He's just such an example of like a good a kind, loving big brother because it's like it's obvious that his younger brother is a genius, right? And I feel like there could be some sort of resentment there, right? Like my 13-year-old brother is smarter than me. Like that has to feel some type of way, right?
Yeah.
But he really wants to get his brother. So his brother, Hero, has graduated from high school at the age of 13 already, and he spent a year out of high school um doing these underground robot fights. And so Tadashi's main goal is to get Hero to stop doing these illegal underground robot fights and to get him to use his mind for good, to start using his brilliant mind for more positive things. And so he kind of like tricks his brother into going to the university that he goes to because he's like, do you want me to drive you to the next underground robot fight?" And Hero's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Wait, this isn't the right way." And Tadashi's just like, "It's okay, I just have to pick something up from school." And then he brings Hero into the lab where he works and introduces him to all of his friends who are so eccentric and so cool. Gogo is probably my favorite, and I definitely want to cosplay her. She uses like magnetic technology for speed, which is really cool. And then there's Wasabi, who is into lasers and stuff. And so his introduction is also really cool. And then Honey Lemon is just the classic, like really smart, awkward girl who what is her thing? It's like matter. She like manipulates matter.
So her
somehow.
purse is a periodic table. So when they're in
Yeah.
the fights and stuff, she's like putting in different elements to create different things on the spot. It's so freaking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Chloe, who has been on the podcast before, is obsessed with Honey Lemon. And I have seen her posting about her and talking about putting together cosplays of her and everything. So the whole time I was watching Honey Lemon, I was just seeing Chloe. So, Chloe, if you're listening, thought of you. And then, is his name Fred or Frank, the other guy?
Fred.
Fred. Yeah, Fred, who like doesn't actually have anything except for money. He's like Batman essentially in that
Pretty
way. He's
much,
like,
yeah.
no, he can't use his science and technology for power, but everyone else like does it for him with his money, with his funding.
With
Um
his funding.
and then Tadashi introduces Hiro to Baymax, and it's Hiro's first time meeting Baymax, who is essentially like a healthcare provider. Like he's
Healthcare
programmed
companion.
healthcare companion. When he hears the word ouch or ow comes out of his little box that he's kept in, and basically assesses the situation. And it's just so sweet and so pure. And you just see how Hero's mind expands. And so the combination of all of those things is like why I fell in love with Tadashi, because he encouraged his brother to like not even apply for the university, but he's like, okay, next thing up is to present at this little convention. And once you do that, if Professor Callahan likes your stuff, you'll be enrolled. He'll enroll you in the university, whatever. And he's just so supportive and so sweet. And so that was like, I want to say like 20 minutes into the movie when Hiro does his presentation with the microbots and really, really impresses everyone with his, because it is obviously like an amazing technology. And so while all of this is happening, I'm like, what is the plot of this movie going to be? Like, what where can this possibly go from here? Because it's these two brothers who are like both really freaking smart and both good at robots. And then I was like, how does Baymax become heroes? Because literally it's called Big Hero 6. So like where what happens there?
Yeah.
And I was not prepared for this big fire at the end of the convention and Tadashi running in to save Professor Callahan. And
And his parting words to Hiro, because Hiro tells him to not go in, but he said someone has to help.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's why I love Tadashi too, is because everything we've seen of him is just to help his brother, help Cass, help the world by creating Baymax. And it's like, uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. So I fell in love with him, and then right away he was burnt to a crisp.
I remember seeing that and being like, no, there's no way. The first
Correct.
time I watched it, I was in so much denial. So much
Yeah,
denial.
me too. This is my notes. Okay. Do you want to I have like a
Yeah.
sequence of notes. I go, if Tadashi dies, and then I go, they fucking went there. And then I said, wow, I'm not even sad. I'm angry. And then I said, no, I'm sad. I wasn't expecting that. But I was wondering how the kid gets in charge of Baymax. So I guess like so pissed. And then I was like, wait, no, I am sad. And it's funny because I didn't like cry
Experience
when it
like
happened.
all of the different quote unquote stages. We don't like calling them stages because it's not linear, but you experience like all of the different stages of grief in that, like in those 5 minutes. You're like, no, it's
Yeah.
not happening. I'm so fucking angry it happened.
Well, I
Dang it,
just
I'm
saw it
sad.
coming. As soon as he's running into the building on fire, I was like, if he fucking dies, I'm gonna be so mad. And then he's dead, and I'm like, I'm mad. I just said if he died, I'd be mad, and now I'm mad.
And now I'm mad. Yeah. No, that one was freaking brutal. Brutal.
So then I was like, well, now I get where the plot of this movie is going because I didn't understand. I was like, where are we going? And there were also a lot of other twists and turns that I really enjoyed. So, Hiro's first interaction with Baymax after Tadashi dies is really endearing. It's very sweet. And then, of course, Baymax wants to help heal Hiro emotionally because he's only equipped to heal physical wounds and physical pain. And so he keeps asking Hero, like, will this help you? I can't remember what words he uses, but like, will this help your emotional state or something like that? And Hero's like, yes. So Baymax, I think the first time he says it, and Hero says yes, Hero's just sort of saying it to get him away from him, like, please leave me alone. But the reason Baymax is asking is because one of the little microbots is like trying to get to the other microbots. But allegedly that's not possible because they were destroyed in a fire. So Baymax literally goes and follows, or like lets the microbot lead the way. And then Hero looks up and he's like, wait, he's actually going. I better follow him. So they have some really lovely adventures together. And I think my favorite part of the whole movie is the scene after that where Hero really opens up to Baymax and kind of says like what is going on with him. Oh, I have the quote written down here. It's, would that stabilize your pubescent mood swings, is what Baymax says to him. But so Hero finally opens up about how painful it is to have lost his brother. And Baymax says, I'm downloading a database on personal loss. And he just like touches a computer and downloads the database. And then he goes, treatments include contact with friends and loved ones. And that just like melted me. And then Baymax like calls his friends and he's like, no, no. So I just thought all of that was very sweet. And then it took another turn when Hero starts to like try to upgrade Baymax into this like kind of warrior
fighter
robot. Yeah. And I actually asked the little boy I babysit how he felt about Big Hero 6. I was like, hey, have you seen Big Hero 6? And he was like, yeah, duh. And, you know, as an 8-year-old is what
Who
to do.
hasn't?
Yeah, who hasn't?
Apparently.
And so he was like, it was okay. And the reason I asked him why he thought it was just okay. And he said that he didn't like the way that Hero programmed Baymax to be a fighter because he didn't think that it was within Baymax's character to be like a fighter. I thought that was really interesting because I kind of felt the
Very
same way. And you see that,
insightful.
yeah, he's a smart kid, but also, yeah, like you see that later on in the movie when Hero kind of lets revenge consume him and he takes the kind caring chip out of Baymax and just leaves the destruction chip in there. And so I think the kid I babysit was kind of like, I think I would have liked it better if they were separate robots, like if he created a fighting robot. And I was like, well, I get why they did it, but I also understand why you didn't like that. Because I think we're not supposed to like that. It's supposed to make us uncomfortable, right?
Right.
But then after I talked to him about that, I was like, okay, so on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you hated it and 5 being you loved it, what do you rate it? And he goes, 4.5. So he still really liked it.
I love that.
Yeah. Just chill 4.5. But yeah, I was sitting watching the movie the whole time asking myself, like, how have I never seen this? How have I never seen this? Because all of the themes are so in line with things that I love and enjoy. Like the description earlier said that it has a big focus on the importance of emotional and physical healing and health. I was like, this is literally what I do. Like, how have I not seen this? And then something else that we talk about on this podcast a lot is like found family and how important it is to have people who support you and friends and all of that. And I feel like that was such a huge theme of this movie too. And the fact that they become literal superheroes by the end, I was like, this movie has everything. I was so shook. I was so shook by the twist on who the bad guy was. And again, spoilers, but like there's a distinct scene at the beginning of the movie where we learn to trust Professor Callahan, right? Like Tadashi trusts him, and because we will do anything Tadashi says, we will trust Professor Callahan. And then what's the other guy's name? I forget. Cray. Yeah, so Cray comes up to Hero after his presentation and is like, I want to buy your microbots. And Professor Callahan interjects and is like, you don't want to do that. Cray is only worried about one thing and he cuts corners. He's only worried about making money, blah, 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 blah. And so Hero denies Cray's offer to buy the microbots. But then it turns out that Professor Callahan is the one who wanted the microbots anyway and and is the one who set the building on fire and is the evil guy who's trying to take over the world. Not take over the world. He's really just trying to get his daughter back, which
He is also ravaged by grief. Yeah. And
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I'll get into that in a little bit because
It's
there's a
very, yeah, it's very full circle. It's all very full circle.
they
Yeah.
did such a good job. There have been very few movies that I have seen where a twist absolutely floors me. Where I like, because I grew up watching Scooby Doo and reading mystery novels, and I can usually see it coming from a mile away. But this one ran me over like a freaking mat truck, and
Yeah.
my like my heart broke. Like I literally felt it deep in my soul that like something just like, because they did
Yeah.
such a, the writers and everything just did like, and obviously now that I've seen it so many times, I can see where they drop little breadcrumbs of like, it's just such a good sleight of hand, a really good misdirect, because they set Cray up to be just your very stereotypical, rich villain of, because like when they're in Fred's giant mansion and they're talking about who the villain could be, it's always the person with the money, the industrialist, the billionaire, the whatever. And because of the first and only interaction we had of Cray with Hero, it just set it up perfectly. And like, ah, ah,
Yeah. Oh, pause
mm,
too. I also love that they were reading comics to figure out who the villain was. And
yeah,
it's a nod. I didn't know this until I was researching while watching that Big Hero 6 is based on comics, which I had no idea.
yeah. No, I thought you would like that a lot. I mean, and what I really love too is that just like the very diverse set of characters we have, but they're all smart and they're all smart in different ways. And I really, really like that kind of like representation, because I think sometimes we can get into our heads that smart only means one thing, and it's typically like book smart. And especially because they're in like robotics, right? But there's just a wide variety of different kinds of smart, and I love that we get like the nerdy smart, and that's helpful too, because Fred's just a giant nerd, and his nerdiness comes in handy for sure.
Yeah. He's like, let's read these comic books and figure out what makes a villain. And they did end up being wrong, which is fine, but we were all fooled. I did have a moment where I thought it was going to be Tadashi and I was like, what kind of world do we live in?
Wouldn't that be crazy? That would be wild.
And then
But
my
I
heart
don't
would have
think that
been
would be a
broken.
Pixar movie. That would be something else. That's okay. That would be a Marvel movie for
That
sure.
would be a Marvel movie. Yeah. It's like Loki and Thor.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the entire time I do remember thinking like, Tanashi's gonna come back. He's gonna come back. And for some weird reason, in the end, I know we're skipping a little bit, but I guess to back up just a little bit, Callahan's whole motive for revenge against, and the reason why he burned the building down so he could get the microbots, is because he wanted to use them to find his daughter, who was sent through like a portal or something that Cray and his technologists built for, because they were going to try and do like time travel or
Teleportation.
teleportation. Yeah,
Yeah.
teleportation. Like instantaneous travel is what I was trying to say. But something went wrong during the thing and his daughter was lost to him. So in the end, they go into the Baymax figures out that she's alive in the realm where she's been in like hypersleep or whatever. But for some reason, when he could like sense life, I was like, oh, it's Tadashi. It made no sense whatsoever, but like I'm still holding on. And there is a show that came out, and it's really cute, but they like touch on Hero's trauma, and there's a point where he has to go visit Callahan in jail because of something to get answers, and he brings up Tadashi, and oh, it's like a whole thing. But on a more lighthearted note, if you want more of Baymax just being super cute and endearing, there's a new show that came out last year, 2 years ago on Disney Plus called Baymax with an exclamation point, and it's so cute. It's just little shorts of him like helping people, but there's this one really, really, really endearing episode where he helps an old lady who is like kind of bitter and has shut herself in and closed her off from the world, and he just like he does with Hero, kind of helps her physically and emotionally. And I just like sobbed the entire time. So anyway.
That sounds so sweet. I loved Baymax. Like
Yeah.
the way in which he interacted with anyone at any point in time. I think I have in my notes somewhere. Hang on, let me find it so I can like read it verbatim. I Here it is. Okay. I almost cry every time Baymax says anything or does anything. That is like so true. It's like on the verge of tears at any point he says anything.
He has Tadashi's heart, literally. He's programmed with so much love and kindness and empathy and compassion. And it's everything we would want in a healthcare provider that we often don't get, especially as women. And I'm just throwing that out there. So yeah, he's great. And I love two things. One, I love how when they're talking about Tadashi being gone, and Baymax is like, no, but he's still here. And Hero's like, no, people keep saying that. He's not really gone, but he is, and it hurts. And Baymax is like, I don't see signs of a physical hurt. And Hero has to explain, like, it's not a physical thing, it's emotional. And yeah, then he puts his hand on the computer and he's like, I'm compiling a database about personal loss. And then uses that. Like, that's such a beautiful thing. And it really stuck out to me because I think sometimes, especially with mental health, our friends or people we love and care about might be going through something, or we might be going through something and we can't explain it or we don't really understand it. And it's really important that we don't expect the person going through it to teach us and do that labor while they're also processing. And I think it's really important that we try to be helpful as much as we can by doing our own research. And I think that's like a really sweet and beautiful way to say, like, hey, I might not quite understand, but I'm here for you and I'm willing to try. The only note I have about Baymax, and it's like a silly note. It's a little too like realistic because this movie is very cute and it's for kids and it's fiction, whatever. But I think Baymax needs to learn consent because
No, I agree.
he's constantly scanning people and their personal data, their biological data, and just like having it on file.
Yeah.
Do this.
Yeah, that definitely is like not legal in any way, shape, or form. It ends up being crucial to the plot though that he
Yeah.
scans the villain without consent. But but yeah, I mean, as you like in addition to you saying that this movie is made for kids and all of that kind of stuff, like consent is still important for kids to learn and
Yeah.
understand too. Like that's something I practice all the time with the kids I babysit is like, not every kid is going to want to hug me goodbye or hug, you know, someone else,
Yeah.
like their friend or whatever. And something I've learned in the like 12 plus years that I've been nannying, like when I was first in this field, like I feel like I forced a lot of kids to like hug or do something that they didn't really want to do, but we were like, it's your friend, give them a hug, like whatever. But like
Yeah.
now the focus is way more on like you don't have to if you don't want to,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
that's a good point. But again, for the purposes of the plot, I get it, but
Yeah.
still, whatever. I don't know. I don't remember if that's something that changes with him in the show or in the shorts, but I don't know. That was just like a note that struck me because I was like, you can't
I
just be scanning people and holding on to their information.
Yeah, no, I thought that too. Like I think it's like one of the first things when Hero meets him and I was like, "Oh, he didn't even ask."
Yeah.
Okay, he just scanned.
Yeah. But the
Okay,
focus of the
I see.
movie is more so teaching children about grief and loss and how to navigate that. And I think starting a really great conversation about those things because it is really complicated and it's not a hurt or a feeling you can quite express around loss. So yeah, I really like that. So while we're on that subject, should we go into themes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like we just talked about and keep mentioning, grief and loss is definitely a huge theme of this movie. And again, I really loved what Baymax said. You wrote it down, but what were his treatments, I guess you could say, for dealing with
Treatments
loss?
include compassion and physical reassurance. Oh no, it's treatments include contact with friends and loved ones. Other treatments include compassion and physical reassurance. And then he like hugs him. It was really sweet. And then he says, I'm sorry about the fire. And then I started crying.
Oh, God. Yeah. I really like too how we get both sides of grief, like being the person processing it and then being the people trying to support and also helping like and processing because like all of the friends that Hiro makes were Tadashi's friends. And I think Gogo is the one who says it when Hiro's like, this is what I need to do. I need to capture this guy for Tadashi because he killed Tadashi, you know? And even Baymax keeps asking, like, is this going to gosh, I wish I could remember what he said. I just watched it. But yeah, he was like, will this improve your health? Will this make me a better healthcare companion in learning karate? And when they finally decide to become superheroes and upgrade and all of that, Gogo's like, Tadashi was our friend too. He was our best friend. So we're gonna do this. We're here for you. And I thought that was really sweet because as they're going through it, you know, they're also there to support Hiro. And I also really liked how they like didn't show up at the house, you know, like banging on Hiro's door, being like, "Hey man, we know you're in there. Let us comfort you." They were very much like, "Hey, we're here and whenever you're ready, we're here for you." And I love that because I think I experienced this and I like in both being the person who's like not overcompensating, but just like ready to help. Like instead of asking like, "Hey, do you just want a shoulder to cry on? Are you looking for advice? Do you just want to vent it out? Or do you want, you know, options? Do you want to brainstorm and figure out how to fix this?" I can sometimes just move into fixer mode, and that's not always it can be helpful, I think, when you mm, maybe have a close enough friendship with somebody, but I think it's always important, regardless of how close you are to somebody, to always ask, like, what do you need? Because I think too, when we jump into fixer mode, it's often because we are uncomfortable with their discomfort. And so, or we have like this narrative that says, you know, we have to help and fix everything because maybe that was the role we had for a really long time in our family dynamic growing up or whatever. But I just really liked seeing that his friends were like, hey, we're here whenever you need us, whenever you're ready, take your time. And I thought that was really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think his aunt also did a really good job of that as well,
Mm.
of like she
And
continued bringing him
Cass.
food. Yeah, Aunt Cass is an OG. Yeah, because the movie even just starts out with like the trauma right off the gate. Like their parents are gone, they're raised by their aunt, you know. And Hiro does say that it happened over 10 years ago, so he doesn't really remember his parents, but like, you know, loss is still loss, and being raised by your aunt is still hard, and she's a single mom, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the way that she cares for Hiro after Tadashi's death is also really sweet because it's like, I'm bringing you food and I'm gently encouraging without pushing. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, she never said like, you have to eat, which I thought was interesting, like an interesting choice. Like she just would take the plate of untouched food away and bring it back. And like, you know, grief will do that to you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you do have to eat, yes, but you know, when it's the only thing that people are like telling you to do,
Yeah. No, it's
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 tough.
it's it's tough. Yeah. That's just really the only way to say it.
You
Grief is
you
tough
sense the
and
love. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's what the most helpful thing is with grief is like even if you aren't able and willing to accept it, being surrounded by love and support is really important.
Yeah, and that can be shown in many different ways. Like, even though
Yeah.
Hero's friends were a little bit more, I don't want to say distant in a negative way, but they just gave him space, right? They didn't want to
Yeah.
overwhelm or anything. And they were probably going through their own things too, so they only had limited capacity or whatever. But then there are other ways where you could show up for people where it is like, instead of being like, how can I help you? And as a person who, you know, went through a whole year of post loss grief, I couldn't tell you. Like, I couldn't tell you what would help because it didn't feel like anything could. But then I had friends that would be like, hey, I'm going to drop off some food, or I'm going to run errands. Do you want to come with me? Or, you know, I am running errands. Can I pick anything up for you? And like, I think just giving the option of a possible way to help is also just as helpful as saying, like, I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything. But oftentimes, pursuing the option is a little bit more helpful because then you don't have the person doing the brain work to be like, what do I need? I don't know. Because self-reflection is probably not the thing you want to be doing while you're grieving.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which is also, I think, why I really love the scene where Baymax shows Hiro the videos of Tadashi. I
Oh,
think they came at like the perfect moment. He didn't show them too soon. He didn't show them too late. And the way I cried when I was watching those, I did not cry when Tadashi died. I was too mad. But then
yeah.
watching those videos of him like failing and trying and failing and trying and just like
Uh,
not letting himself get bogged down by how much work it took to create Baymax, right?
yeah.
And it was just such like a beautiful thing to watch that Hero would have not seen otherwise because it's the process of creating, right? But
Yeah.
Baymax was recording all of it. And so there is a piece of Tadashi. And I think that's something lovely about grief, at least that's helpful, that I have noticed is helpful for me, is after a bit of time, because I think if it's too close, it gets too emotional, but
Mhm.
like sharing about and talking about the people, or if it's not a person, if it is like an animal or a pet or something, like telling stories about, or having other people share their favorite stories of, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff I have found is like really cathartic and healing when it comes
Yeah.
to grief too.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the ending where, spoiler, they kind of lose Baymax in the random, I don't even know what you call it, the portal, the time space continuum. Baymax is like injured enough to where he can't go out with them through the thing, but he's able to get Hero and Abigail out. And that's what's like so heartbreaking, is because that's like the last piece of Tadashi that Hero has. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna cry. So moving on. I think
But
that's also
then, well, you're leaving out the best part though, but then
true.
Hero realizes that Baymax actually pulled out his healthcare chip that was made by Tadashi
Yeah.
and
And he
put
could
it in
rebuild
the,
him.
yeah, so that he could rebuild him still with the same heart. So,
Yeah.
it's all's well that ends well.
Spoiler, spoiler, too, if we want to go that far. The original Baymax actually comes back in the show. They like find him again.
So he's only a fighter.
No, maybe. I don't remember actually. But yeah, it's really
Well, he's only got the fighter chip, so
That's true. That's true. Like with grief, we see people processing it in different ways. One of them being like action, trying to action your way out of it. And that's kind of what Hero does to process, is by doing something, making Baymax a fighter, making all of his friends superheroes, and going after the person that took Tadashi and stole his microbots. And it's interesting that there's this parallel between him and who turns out to be Professor Callahan, as far as like revenge, like grief turned into revenge. And because of that, when they're fighting Callahan for the second time, I think I want to say, he takes out the chip that basically prevents Baymax from hurting people, because his initiative is to, he's a caregiver. He's supposed to help people, but the Hero is so bogged down with grief and anger that he takes out that chip and tells Baymax to
destroy.
unalive the guy. Yeah, he
Yeah.
like destroy him, and because Baymax doesn't have that chip anymore, he does, and everyone's like, whoa, 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 no, we're not doing this. So the rest of the team is trying to stop him, and Hero gets really upset and really mad. And even Baymax is like, this is not what Tadashi built me for. This is not what Tadashi would have wanted. And that's when Hero gets mad and he's like, well, Tadashi's not here. And that's when he shows him the clip and reminds Hero of like why. And I really like that too, just like realigning him with, even though they're Tadashi's values technically, but he and Tadashi and Hiro shared a lot of similar values and things like that, and just reminding him like why Baymax was created in the first place, and also reminding Hiro why he wants to destroy the villain. And because of that, then he has like a conversation with the team and he says sorry. But then in the end, when Callahan is trying to use the bots to get revenge on Cray, Hero even tells him like, this is not going to work. You're not going to get the satisfaction you think you are. And it like also kind of broke my heart that this child learned this lesson so young. and has to teach. I mean, of course, I don't want to say like teach a grown man as if it's something you should know by then, because we all experience grief at different points in our life, but it's just like just adds that layer, of like, gosh, dang,
Mm-hmm,
poor
mm-hmm.
child. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also love how the movie comes. I've said it a couple times, like the ways in which the movie comes full circle, because when Baymax does sort of scan that there is human life in the portal,
Mm-hmm.
after I think Callahan has already been cuffed up and everything, like they're about to cart him away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Hero uses the same exact line that Tadashi uses, someone has to help.
Yeah,
So
because
full circle.
Prey's like, it's unstable. The portal's gonna cave in on itself. You guys probably won't make it out. And Hero's like, somebody has to help. And I was like,
Yep. Yep.
and
So it's
then
just like
they lose Baymax
beautiful.
in the process. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This movie. But then, like you said, he does technically come back, and it's very sweet.
Yeah.
I think another theme that we've touched on is definitely community, friendship, and trust.
Yeah, well, it's like the trust was broken like at the end of the film because we had so much trust in like Callahan, right? And I think that's hard too, is like when they discover who it is, it's so mind-blowing. But they see that he is not technically justified, but they understand why he
Mm-hmm.
is hell bent on this revenge. And then for community and friendship, like I think there are so many layers of that because it's like we already talked about how the friends were showing up for Hero while they were grieving and also while he was grieving, but also the way in which they work together, both before and after Tadashi's death. Like, it's just
Yeah.
so beautiful. And like what you were saying, they're all so diverse and so smart in different ways. And I just thought it was like a really beautiful thing to see. And like what I said earlier too about finding people who support you and having
Yeah.
that found family. It's just so important.
Yeah, definitely. We've said it before and we'll keep saying it, but there is healing in community. There's only like no one else can heal us, obviously, but the journey can be so much easier, or at least it alleviates a lot of the pain when we have people around us who can support us, and that's really, really important. There was something you said about when Baymax is showing those clips of Tadashi working on Baymax and like his trial and error. And it also reminded me not just of his willingness to like learn as far as trial and error goes, but also Hero's willingness to learn and learning how to suddenly, or not suddenly, but learning how to have an open mind, because at the beginning of the movie he knows he's smart, he knows he's a genius, and he kind of thinks that makes him better than most people because he keeps
Yeah.
calling Tadashi's university nerd school. He's like, why do I have to go to a nerd school where they're going to tell me things I already know? And Tadashi's so
Yeah.
sweet about it. And he's like, I'll show you, like, oh, baby
Yeah.
brother, let me show you. So I thought that was really interesting because you know, it reminded me of like the gifted kid kind of pipeline or burnout that can happen, because when you're young and you are displaying an intelligence that might be a little bit above quote unquote everyone else's, you're considered like a gifted kid. But then when all of the gifted kids are put together and you're suddenly on the same playing field, they're like, you're not ahead. And so it makes you feel like if you're not ahead, then you're behind and you're not good enough. And what I really liked, well, first of all, I just liked that that didn't happen to Hero, that no one made him feel dumb. In the show, there is a little bit of like he's struggling and he's learning, but I think it was really sweet that he got a behind the scenes look at Tadashi. Like Baymax was not a one and done deal. Like there were, I don't remember how many takes it was, but there were so many, and Tadashi was like tired, and he might have also been on the brink of giving up, but then he kept going and it all worked out. And one of my favorite scenes is in that little montage when Baymax like broke down or whatever, and Tadashi's like, we're gonna keep trying, buddy, because you're gonna help so many people. And I was like, because
Yeah.
in that moment he wasn't talking to Baymax, he was talking to Hero, and I was like, stop, I'm gonna cry. uh, uh, Heather, don't look at me like that. I'm gonna cry. Ugh.
It's just so sweet, and I just wish Tadashi was real so I could fall in love with him. Thank you. Even though he would be dead anyway.
Maybe you'll find your Tadashi at the next convention. Maybe that's what it is. If you see someone cosplaying Tadashi, boom, marry him.
Or my brain went to I need to go to robotics conventions. Anyway.
Anyway, as far as themes go, yeah, I think that's really it. The big one is grief, loss, and that kind of branches out into friendship and healing, perseverance, and resilience. Really, I think is like a really big character trait we see in Hero and everyone really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like what's really lovely about this movie is that like it touches on a lot of I think like what we like to talk about on this podcast. Like
Mm.
the thing that stuck out to me the most was like Baymax Baymax's primary function to be to help you heal, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's like so beautiful because it's like emotional and physical health is so important, but a lot of people, especially when they're going through something hard, they let that aspect deteriorate in some ways or another.
Yeah.
And so I feel like everybody needs a Baymax, right?
And I liked
And
how Baymax was also learning too that there are some things you can't fix
yeah.
because Hiro
Hmm.
told him like when they're talking about Tadashi being dead and his hurt, he's like, this isn't something this you can't fix this one, buddy, I think is his exact line. And
Yeah.
Baymax is learning that physical ailments are more easy, quote unquote, to fix, and emotional ones can hurt just as much, but they're not exactly ones that either can be fixed or need fixing even. It's kind of like a journey and a process, and there's so many different layers, and it's not linear. And even though I
Yeah.
know Baymax is a robot, and he learns a lot about how complicated emotions can be for humans, and I think he adapts very well, and he tries his very best to be the best healthcare companion that he can be, and it's really sweet.
Yeah. And I also like what you said about it not being linear. Like we see a lot of that too, because Baymax will look at Hero and be like, your brain looks better. I know that's not true, but
Oh
like,
yeah, he's
you
like
seem happier.
your neurotransmitters are elevated or your endorphins are really high. Does this mean you're satisfied with your care? Does this mean you're happy now? You're healed, right? And Hero's like, not even close.
Right. It's just like, it's just an interesting of like, there are things that can bring you joy when you are grieving and sad. Like there are things that can get you out of that. It doesn't mean that it's permanent. It doesn't mean that you're
Yeah.
healed, but it does feel nice when you get those little glimmers of hope.
Yeah. Yeah. The both and.
The both and yeah. So, when it comes to like fitness and body image, that's kind of like what I really look at is more of the like emotional, the emotional benefits of exercise,
Mm.
like the quote unquote endorphins that you can get or, like what you can how moving your body can get you out of funks and can move you through things. And of course, there are once you go across a certain line into the darker place, grief can also cloud that and you could start using movement as a negative coping mechanism and that's just a layer of awareness you need to have. So to equate it to the movie, it's like when Hero starts training Baymax in karate. At
Yeah.
first, it's like, cool. He's like, oh, I'm doing this thing. But then when you lose that chip, the healthcare chip, and you
Yeah.
become, I'm only going to destroy myself and my body, that's where you've kind of went a little too far. And you're so focused on, like, you're so focused on just like this negative place and the way that
Yeah.
you're moving. You need the uplifting healthcare part as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, that's the same for like a healing journey. Again, like I said, this movie just highlights that it's not linear. Community and friendship is so key. And even if we don't have our own personal Baymax, I think it's important to know that we can kind of become our own when we need it, where we are able to look inside ourselves and if we have the energy and capacity to do so. Because, like I said, sometimes when we're going through certain things, we're not able to, but it's easier sometimes to identify physical illnesses and physical hurt. But when emotional hurt comes around, I think it's kind of the same in that you turn inward, reflect, and just hold space. I think that's what all of his friends and what Baymax did so well is just holding that space, not to try and hold the grief for Hero or take it away or move him along or anything, but they're just there for him. They show up, and I think that's really important. So when you're trying to do that for yourself, try to ignore any inner voice that's like, you should be over this by now, or the guilt that might come up when you are having fun and you weren't thinking about the thing. And reminding yourself that two things can exist. You can be grieving and you can experience joy. You can be happy and sad, and that doesn't negate anything one way or the other, especially when we're going through periods of grief. I think there's this idea that like, and I think it's because we keep hearing it as 5 stages, right? Of like, okay, we're in our denial stage, and then we're going to go into our anger stage, and then sadness, and then, blah, blah, blah. And then we're at acceptance. But I think just like we saw in the movie, and just like you said, there's a point where like Hiro has accepted. He has accepted that Tadashi is gone, and he is very aware of everything. And his quote unquote form of acceptance, he accepted it and then realized that the fire was intentional and that hurt Tadashi and that sparked like a whole other thing. And then he was angry and sad and happy because he had his friends and they were doing something quote unquote, kind of productive. But it wasn't until, his anger kind of really came to a head where everyone was like, we don't hurt people regardless of how angry or sad we are. And I think that was like where he like really accepted not just that Tadashi had died, but accepted grief in all of its facets. You know what I mean? Like he just accepted that it's there and it's here and he can't push it away any longer by trying to action his way out or program himself or Baymax or any of his friends to forget about it and like quote unquote move on. He's accepted that like these feelings will probably be around for a while and that's okay, and I'm going to allow myself the opportunity to process it. So
Yeah, and that by acting out in certain ways, it's not going to bring Tadashi back.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I will just leave my little body image note that I love that Baymax is big and fluffy, and Tadashi created him that way so that he would be soft and huggable, which I love.
I love
Um,
that. I loved when Hero's putting the armor on him and he was like, I think this compromises my huggable design.
yeah. And then I just loved the, you know, diversity of the characters. I don't think they went too crazy with diversity, but I did like that Wasabi's design. He's like a little larger on top, that kind
Yeah.
of situation. So,
Yeah. No, I love this movie. It's so special. I'm so glad you have finally experienced Big Hero 6 and that you walked away loving it.
yeah,
um
truly, truly had no idea what to expect at any turn.
but this one
Yeah,
was
no,
so special.
yeah, this movie is amazing. I don't understand how I've never seen it.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Like I think of all the ones that I hadn't seen yet or have only seen a couple times, like this is my favorite. Like I like this better than anything else we've ever watched.
I can see that, yeah. And especially because, last season was about a lot of princesses and there was always like a romantic undertone and things like that. I love that it's just friendship.
Yeah.
You know, not that love is we. I feel like we say this a lot, where it might come off like anti-love. We're not anti-love. We, it's just like you said. You know, we have mixed feelings about a relationship or a romance being the vehicle of the plot. So anyway, yeah, I am really glad this movie just smashed it out of the park for you, because it's so good and I love it so much. And I feel like it's so underrated. And I think it's
Yeah.
mainly because it's like too complicated for children, because it's really not. But I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't seem to hit as hard as some of the other movies. I don't know.
Well, the kid I babysit gave it a 4.5 out of 5, even though when I asked him how he felt about it, he was like, meh.
Can we have your, we don't have to give him a name, but we'll just call him like Heather's kid. Like Heather's kids ranking or something. Like I want him now to rank
Yeah, I'm gonna
every
do that
movie.
from here on out. From here on out, every time before we record, I'm gonna ask the little boy I babysit what his rating of the movie we are about to talk about is, and I will share it on the podcast for
I
sure.
love it. We'll just call him, should we just call him like little boy? I'm little
I
Ben.
just
You
call
can be
him
little
no,
boy.
I little boy. Yeah, I mean, I do just call him the little boy I babysit, so that's what
Yeah,
we will call him.
there you
Little
go.
boy's rating
Little boy's
4.5 out of
rating.
5.
I love it. Perfect.
He's little
Um,
LB.
we have a little Peach and a little Elvie now.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Look at us.
Even though his like double little boy, but that's fine.
Little, fine. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Heather, again, it just makes my heart so happy that you love this movie. And I am still mind blown that this was your first time watching it. It's just so good. And I'm glad you think so too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. All right, everybody. Tune in next time. And if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, you can reach out to mhm.thepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want additional content, we have a Patreon and a Discord that you can join. So links are in the bio show notes for that.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Yay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content.
To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at littlebin_notbroken, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.